Welcome everybody to part 3 of me ranking all of Star Wars. In part 1 we ranked the Skywalker Saga, in part 2 we ranked the Clone Wars, Rebels, all those animated shows, as well as the other 3 movies, and now we're going to rank the live action TV shows of Star Wars. This is probably my favorite part because you get to experience some of the best and worst of Star Wars from the live action TV shows. So without further ado, let's hop into it. The Mandalorian. This was the very first Star Wars show that ever released on Disney+. So I'm going to run through the seasons again like I did in part 2, and season 1 was an absolute banger. I distinctly remember going home each Wednesday, watching the episode, and then the next day going to school and talking about it with my friends. That was so much fun. We would each go home and watch it, and then the next day hear each other's opinions. That is such a good memory for me because it's what made Star Wars fun and relevant. Another great thing about this first season is that you didn't need to watch anything before watching this show. It was one of those things you could jump right into and enjoy without any background information. Unlike the rest of the Star Wars saga where you kind of need to watch it in order, this was one of those things where anybody could enjoy it even if they have absolutely no knowledge of Star Wars. It was just such a fun and special thing. There was no real story to this first season, except for the part where, the Mandalorian has to protect the child, but each episode was a different mission he had to go on, and each episode was a thrilling watch. It was so much fun to just see Star Wars in a big, booming media again, and that's what made the show so special and set it apart from the Star Wars movies. Season 2, we get some more story. We find out the Mandalorian has to return the child to the Jedi, or what's left of them, and we get some more cameos in it, like Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano, Luke Skywalker, Boba Fett even. Now, whether or not those cameos made the show better or worse is really up to how much Star Wars context you have. For me, I liked them in Season 2. I thought they brought out the story a little bit more and made it a little bit more fun. Season 3 was kind of meh. The story took a bit of a dip here, not a show-destroying dip, nothing devastating, but it was enough to where I kind of lost faith in the story at that point. I felt the finale, the Siege on Mandalore with Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon, was kind of cheesy. I don't think Bo-Katan was portrayed very well in this final season. But there are also some really strange episodes in this season, such as the one with Jack Black and Lizzo. Yes, if you don't know already, Jack Black and Lizzo are in Star Wars. Kinda shocking. It was cute to see them with Grogu and play around with him, but it was also very, very cringe. If I could rank each individual season, I would, but if I did that, I have to do it for every show, so I'm not going to. But Season 3 was just kind of a disappointment for me, so I think I'm going to put it into A tier. The first 2 seasons are phenomenal. I'll go back and watch them in a heartbeat, but just because of that final season, it's going just a little bit below S tier. Next show is The Book of Boba Fett. Why it was called The Book of, I don't know, but it was a TV show, not a book. But in case you didn't know, a long time ago, Boba Fett, he was originally going to get a movie, and it was going to be R-rated. It was going to be like a Western gunslinger-style movie, and of course it was canceled because it was R-rated. That's not what Star Wars is. But they kind of brought back the idea and made it into this show, and was it a good move? Debatable. I personally wanted to see the mysterious gunslinging Boba Fett that we saw in Return of the Jedi. Certainly not R-rated, but definitely sort of like, Western style, pull the gun out and win the duel kind of Boba Fett. Instead, we got a weird politician that treated everyone with respect. That didn't really feel like Boba Fett. Now, I'm not saying Boba Fett should have been completely disrespectful. I'm just saying that his portrayal wasn't the same as it was in Return of the Jedi, and certainly not what I expected out of this show. Also, I love Boba Fett's story of him being found by the Tusken Raiders and then him climbing the ranks of the Tuskens and earning their respect. I thought that was very interesting and really added to his character arc. So when I look at the title of this show, it says The Book of Boba Fett, right? It doesn't say The Mandalorian. Is that right? I'm not crazy, am I? But yes, The Mandalorian was the main focus for about 2 or 3 episodes, and I really don't like that. If they're going to bring the Mandalorian in here, do it correctly. Don't make him take over the show because he's making a bunch of money for you. Just put him in here respectfully as a quick side character, but keep Boba Fett as the main focus. That's all I ask. I don't know. Look, there are a lot of great things about this show and a lot of okay things about this show. I feel like it could have been a lot better than it was, but it's okay, so I think I'm going to throw it into B tier. Next is the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, and this show had a lot of mixed opinions when it first came out. The first time I watched it, I didn't really like it that much, but I think I was influenced by other people's opinions. So going back and rewatching it with an open mind gave me a lot better focus, and now I see that it's not as bad as I first thought. We got to see Hayden Christensen's return to Star Wars. He got to play Darth Vader / Anakin again in this show, and that's always good for any fan to see an old actor come back and reprise the role. Same thing for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Some of my favorite characters, as you might know, are the Inquisitors, and they played a significant role in this show. We got to see some characters that we saw in the Rebels. We got to see them in live action for the first time, and whether or not they looked good was debatable, but it's cool to see them in a different show other than Rebels. And that's about it, actually. There are a few other minor things I liked, but for the most part, that was it. More things to hate on about this show, and I really don't like saying that, but it's just the truth. I feel like the young Princess Leia story is a bit forced in this show. She's in every episode, and I know it's necessary to give that connection to Obi-Wan and Leia so that it branches into A New Hope, but it felt a little forced. I didn't like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan's duel at the end of the series either. It didn't sit right with me because in A New Hope, Darth Vader says, "When I left, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." It didn't feel like that line really fit with this show. I feel like if the show didn't exist, that line would fit a lot better with Revenge of the Sith, and really, I felt like this show is kind of unnecessary because of that. It's really hard to explain, and if you can understand it, great, and if you can't, I'm sorry. And then there's Reva, the fourth or third, I don't really care, sister, the Inquisitor sister. And oh my gosh, I don't understand. Well, okay, I like that they brought a new character into Star Wars and that she's a new Inquisitor. I like that, and I like that she has a decent backstory, but she just kind of encroached onto Obi-Wan's story. This show is supposed to be about Obi-Wan Kenobi, so then why is some of the story really tight on this character? I'm not even going to get into how she survived a lightsaber stab through the chest twice. That's been such an issue in the Star Wars community lately, whether or not lightsabers work or not, and this really created that issue, and it's not helping at all. Oh yeah, and I forgot, the Grand Inquisitor also survived a lightsaber stab through the chest. How does that work? Qui-Gon died with a lightsaber stab, so why didn't these characters? Why are they still alive? Disney has brought an uproar to their community with this issue that I'm just done. I'm done. So where do I rank it? Well, where do I rank it? That's the question, isn't it? I went straight into the negative stuff. I bypassed all the positive things I was going to say, and now I'm not so sure. It's got me all worked up. I'll go back and watch the show every, 3 years? It's just not a necessity. It's not a critical part of the story. You don't have to watch it. And really, it's not that memorable either. All that I can remember about the show is it receiving some backlash for the whole lightsaber issue I mentioned earlier, and that's not a good thing. This might be kind of shocking, but I'm going to put it into D tier because nobody really asked for this show. I don't think anybody would be mad if this show didn't exist because, again, it's not that crucial to the story. But those are just my opinions. It's going in D tier, and that's where it's going to stay. Next, we have Star Wars Ahsoka, aka Rebels Season 5. But yes, most of the characters that were in this show came from Star Wars Rebels, like Sabine, Ezra, Thrawn, and they're all in Ahsoka now. But that's not a bad thing. It's good to see some animated characters come into live action. That lets you know that Disney thinks they're important and that they deserve some other recognition other than a quote-unquote kids show. Thrawn coming back, again, he's like one of my favorite characters. To see him in live action was insane. It was mind-blowing. I just never thought he'd get to that point because he started out as a book character. He was in a book that came out in 1990-something. And then so many years later, they brought him into Rebels, an animated TV show, and he was portrayed fairly well, but now he's in a live action show. That's such a big step for a character that was just a dream in one guy's head and now is a major character in Star Wars. Two new characters in this show, Shin Hati and Baylan Skoll, were, I think, great additions to the story, really added a bit more depth and added some more characters, more bad guys. Well, actually, we don't know if they were bad guys or not because we really didn't get to know their story. Unfortunately, we might not get to know some of their story because the actor for Baylan Skoll, Ray Stevenson, passed away after the filming of Ahsoka. It's very sad for not only Ahsoka but for him because his acting was so good and his story, it felt like it could go in so many different places and it was very exciting to see and now that he's gone, it's very sad. But it's good to see him immortalized in this show. He did such a great job. Despite those things I enjoyed, there were multiple things that I did not enjoy, of course. Sabine Wren using the Force as well as getting stabbed, I'm not getting into again, but just a few other issues with Star Wars here. In the lightsaber fights, when I was watching them, I was like, these look a little bit slow. Is that on purpose? I don't know if it was or not, but when compared to the prequels, the stunt choreography in this show is significantly downgraded just compared to Revenge of the Sith and the fast-paced duels that we got. This felt like a really cheap version of that. Sure, like Revenge of the Sith is a big budget movie and this is just a mini show, but then we go to the Acolyte a few years later. Can't believe I'm saying this, but it had much better stunt choreography than Ahsoka, so it makes you wonder what went wrong. And the last thing is that the overall story didn't feel that compelling. I didn't feel like I needed to watch this show. Even during those last couple episodes where it's supposed to be this big finale, I probably clicked off 1 or 2 episodes to go watch Bluey. Now I'm serious, like I just didn't feel engaged. Nothing was really stunning or eye-opening about this show. There were no technological advancements or story advancements. It felt very basic, and I just wasn't thrilled. Ahsoka Tano, the main character of this show, felt very serious and dull compared to her Clone Wars appearance, and she just felt very out of character, I guess you could say. So I think I'm going to put it in the end of the line in C tier. I almost put it in D tier, but for Ray Stevenson, I'm going to put it a little bit higher. There's also a supposed Season 2 coming out in the next coming years, and I'm actually kind of excited to see where it goes because they left us on a cliffhanger, but we're just going to have to wait and see. The Acolyte. Oh boy, this is going to be short and not very sweet. The only thing, and I mean the only thing I liked about this show was the lightsaber duels I mentioned earlier. They were choreographed fairly well, and I liked the Sith Lord's helmet, how he could headbutt a lightsaber. That was something we'd never seen before, and it was new and original. The rest of the show, though, I don't want to say I hated it. Hate's kind of a strong word, but I kind of did, I didn't like it, at all. Down to, the last 3 episodes, I asked myself constantly, what am I watching? How does this play into the main Star Wars trilogy at all? Where does this play into Star Wars at all? What am I watching? The show was advertised as something that came before the Phantom Menace during the High Republic era, and that got me excited. But then I watched it and I realized that this entire show was focused on these 2 twin girls that nobody cared about. The story was garbage. I didn't care about it at all. All I wanted to see was Darth Malgus again. I know it's kind of in the wrong timeline, but I would have much preferred him over whatever the heck we got. I'd rather watch the sequels 50 times than watch this a second time. That's how bad it was. Throw it in F tier. I'm done. I like to end things on a high note, and I saved the best for last. Star Wars Andor. My absolute favorite Star Wars show, if not my favorite piece of Star Wars media we've ever had. I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute detail. I loved everything about this show. The choreography, the acting, the stunts, the story. Oh my gosh, the story. Everything was just exceptional. The biggest thing for this show is that it was so different from anything we'd seen before. In A New Hope, you get that clear contrast between the good guys and bad guys, but in Andor, it's a little less clear. Kind of like Rogue One, where we go into these darker places with the characters and find out more about them. They're doing the right things, but for the wrong reasons. At the same time, you can feel a connection to the characters and kind of relate to them a little bit. For example, episode 10, where they break out of the prison, you feel that rebellion. You want them to escape. You want them to shoot and kill the bad guys. You're on their side. There's so much more I could get into about this show, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to cap it off right here. But you know what? You should go watch the show for yourself. I know it's kind of slow, but I'm telling you, it is worth it. Just give it a chance. Watch it all the way through. I've recommended it to everybody I've met. Please go watch Andor. You will not regret it. We're also getting Season 2 in April of 2025, so we're just going to have to see if it holds up to Season 1. I'm hoping it's better. That's kind of what you want from a Season 2. Of course, I have high hopes for it, but we're just going to have to wait and see. So I'm going to put it in the very top of the list. S tier all of the way. It is the best piece of Star Wars media we have ever had. And when I said Andor was the last show, I was kind of lying because Skeleton Crew is the last show we are going to rank. But as of recording this, the show actually hasn't come out yet, so I'm going to rank it based on the trailers we've gotten. And let me just start off and say it's been a rough year for Star Wars in 2024. What with Tales of the Empire being kind of meh and The Acolyte being garbage and getting some really bad reviews, we're going to really need to pick me up here soon. I don't think Skeleton Crew is the show to save Star Wars like The Mandalorian was. I don't have super high hopes for it, but I am interested to see what it's going to be because it looks very different than anything we've had in the past. Probably not going to be anything really special, anything mind-blowing, but who knows, it could surprise me and be as good as The Mandalorian. Again, we're just going to have to wait and see on this one. And when this show does come out, I will release a short or something of me properly ranking it because right now we only have the trailers. And based on those trailers, I think I'm going to give it a fair C tier. It doesn't look anything big and surprising, like I said before, but I have some faith in it, so it's going to go in C tier for now. So yeah, that's me ranking all of Star Wars in 3 minutes. No, 3 videos. Sorry. Wow. Definitely not 3 minutes. More like 45 minutes. Total, of course. And I probably could have shortened it a little bit, but I wanted to get my feelings across over how I felt on these shows so that you guys get a better idea of how I feel about something when I, review a set or make a stop motion film. You know kind of where my heart's at when I'm making those things. And don't worry, I'm not going to become one of those Star Wars critics channels. I'm going to stick with Lego Star Wars. I feel like that's what I do best, and I'm more comfortable doing it. So don't worry, I'm not going to go anywhere. And if you haven't already, you should go check out the rest of the channel. I've got some great set reviews and stop motion films on there that I think you would really enjoy, and I've got a lot more of those on the way, so you should be prepared. One way you can stay prepared is by, you guessed it, subscribing. It's down there, that gray oval button, can't miss it. Just hit that and you'll be notified whenever I upload those new projects. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a real pleasure to make these videos. As of recording, I've hit about 400 views total on the past 2 review videos. So if you haven't already, go watch those. Maybe hit the like button as well. But I think that's it. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.